morning, good day to all of you who are joining us today. Welcome to our Pollinators Toolkit session. A few housekeeping rules. If you haven't already, please could you rename yourself with your full name and organization, because this helps us know who's in the room and make those, we should definitely stay in touch moments. So hi everyone, welcome. If you can, please rename yourself with your full name and your organization, just for us to know who's in the room and in case you all need to connect after the call. All right. Hi, Richard. Nice to see you.
Okay, so you want me to name myself? Okay, as you can see, my name is Richard Dozier, and I'm a direct director for the Office of Grants and Special Projects here at Academic City University in Accra, Ghana. It's Dr. H. Richard Dozier. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So you could rename yourself with Academic City at the end of your name, so that everyone on the Zoom call knows who you are. All right. I see Morgan has renamed herself. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Astu. Thank you, Serena. Um, just as another reminder, please could you rename yourself with your full name and organization. So, for those who I am meeting for the first time, which is very unlikely, um, my name is Tess from Nairobi, Kenya. I am the network nurturer with Pollinate Impact, which means that I spend my time cultivating intentional connections across our community, connecting members with one another, with funders, mentors, partners, learning opportunities, and conversations that help them thrive. It's so nice to see all of you here. And behind the scenes today, supporting with our tech, we have Azan, who's from Tanzania, and we have Kavya from India. So if you see them, there they are, and they'll be supporting with our tech work for today. So we can go on to the next slide. All right, so if you're new to Pollinate Impact, consider this your invitation to join our growing community of impact incubators and accelerators and ecosystem builders from all around the world. If you're looking for a space to connect, exchange ideas, collaborate, then Pollinate Impact is for you. You can scan the QR code. Hi, Belinda. So nice to meet you. I see some of us are joining from Germany. It's fantastic. And for those who are just coming in, please feel free to say hello in the chat box. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, just for us to get to know one another as we are starting off. So if you'd like to learn more about Pollinate Impact, we've shared the link in the chat, and you can use that to understand more about the work, and would love to have you join our community. All right, so coming up in the next few weeks, we have our whole thematic area for the next 4 weeks is around pathways to financial resilience. And so all of our sessions are designed to help build the financial sustainability of the impact incubators that we work with. And so coming up next, we have the co-designing collaborative fundraising session. We can go on to the next slide. So this is going to be with some of our network members. And the idea is if we wanted to go or create a collaborative funding initiative, how would we do that? And so this is going to be a co-creation group, and you're most welcome to join. And then we have on September 2nd, the routes to results. And the big question here we're asking ourselves is, how do you stay aligned with your mission while you are chasing financial sustainability? So we're going to be hearing from other incubators who have navigated moments where financial sustainability and mission alignment came into tension. So these are stories that may include some of your own experiences. And so if you'd like to join this session, please stay tuned. We'll be sharing where you can register. And then finally, on September 17th, we have Signals from the Field. So if you've not already seen our guide on effective incubation, this is something that our research team is working on. And so this session is going to be around emerging insights from our ongoing primary research on financial sustainability. So that's coming up on September 17th. So if any of these sessions resonate with you, please go to our website and you'll be able to get access to the events. Now, how are we going to be spending our time together? So today we are here at the welcome, and then we're going to go into a breakout room for our check-in activity. This is another moment of connection for you and the people on this call. And then we're going to be setting the context for the conversation. And then Christy, who is here, is going to be taking us through agenda item 4 all the way to agenda item 6. And some of these conversations will be had in breakout rooms. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready because this is going to be a very engaging workshop and you're going to be doing a lot of thinking and a lot of learning and a lot of giving back feedback. So without further ado, we are just going to get started with our check-in question. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms of 2 to 3 people. And in this breakout room, hi Salma, so nice to see you. You and the person you're going to be in the breakout room, you're going to take turns to introduce yourselves. And you are going to be answering the following questions that I'm placing in the chat. So do take time to introduce yourselves. The breakout room is going to be open for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back here after those 5 minutes to share what it is you've had in those breakout rooms. As a last reminder, as the breakout rooms are opening up, we'll be here for the next 75 minutes. So please do get comfortable, get something to drink, get comfortable. And in your breakout rooms, keep it snappy, right? We'll get the details more offline. So Kavya, whenever you're ready, you can open up the breakout rooms and I will see you back here in the next 5 minutes. Welcome once again and all the best in connecting.
Yeah, happy connecting, everyone. It's opening now.
Fantastic.
It was really good. Yeah, I enjoyed getting to chat and hear a little bit more about the specific struggles of the organization that my breakout buddy was dealing with.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm seeing smiling faces. I hope it was interesting to connect with your breakout room buddies, because that's what we're calling them for today's session. So I'd just like to hear a few voices in the room. Please take the time to just answer either of these questions, right? So what are some of the struggles you heard in your breakout room? Or what does your breakout buddy want more clarity on from this session? So feel free to unmute and let me know.
I guess I'll jump in. It's always hard being the first one, isn't it? In our room, we actually had a lot of common themes. So it's, this cycle takes a long time. How can we speed up the go, no go decisions? How can we align our language to what funders are looking for, but still stay true to our own mission? And also, a really good point was raised is that there's not a lot of fun in fundraising. Some of it is stress raising. So anyway, it's trying to get some information, how better to approach it, how to build on our networks and partnerships and really learn from each other. It really is more about collaboration than competition. And I'll let someone else speak now. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Serena, for opening it up for all of us. Anyone else would like to come in? What did you hear in your breakout room?
Well, I'll just say, it's two individuals in my breakout room. And here again, I'm not really keen on remembering names, but from Senegal and also from Benin. And so and our ideas is to learn more about fundraising. And my own personal struggle is always the ask. You know, I've never liked ask. I didn't even like my asking my parents for money. So, and now here I am going to be here I am asking, well, I won't say total strangers, but investors uh, to assist in investing in a project. And, so if you're going to be asking them for, you know, $1 million or 500,000 or $10,000, it's always that comes down to having that relationship and asking that question.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for sharing. I see Salma, you have your hand up. Please come in.
Thank you, Tess, and thank you guys for holding this for us. I was in a breakout room with Emmanuel, who happens to be from Uganda, just my neighbor here. I don't know if he's raised his hand as well. We're short of time, but I'm very happy that we operate in the same field, which is circular economy. And just like him, we're also joining this session today to just understand our partnerships, around our audiences and find out what they really want to push the needle towards fundraising, whether it's incubators, our partner organizations. So this session is very important for communicators alike and people in partnership roles, just to, get a deeper insight and deeper understanding of what, these organizations really the pain points and how we can actually move the needle across them. So I'm just excited to be here today, learn, and, be a sponge as much as I can. So thank you so much for having us. And yeah, thank you for this session as well.
Thank you so much, Salma. I would love to hear from the rest of you. Feel free to drop them in the chat. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful speaker for the day. Just as a reminder, please have a paper and a pen next to you. If you'd like to have your video on, it is most welcome. I'm sure Christy will appreciate being able to see all of your facial expressions and just being able to see if you're like agreeing and to the things that she was going to be mentioning today. And I think for the next 60 minutes now, we're going to be building on the idea of how can impact drive your income, which I know is something very big that For Impact is all about. So Christy, the floor is yours. Feel most welcome.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here with you. It's morning where I'm at. I'm in Seattle, Washington, in the United States, and I know many of you are quite far from here, so good evening to you. I am going to share my screen here. One moment. So before I jump into our content for today, I wanted to just share a little bit more about For Impact. So I'm here doing a training today with you all, happy to be with you. But For Impact has been around for quite a while. We work with lots of mission-based organizations all over the world and have been doing this work for about 35 years, helping them to have better funding conversations, basically. So wanted to just flash up here a little bit about our work, where we work, some of our results, but I won't spend a ton of time on this. I just wanted to introduce For Impact. So if any of you are interested in talking more about what a partnership could look like, I'll share my information at the end, and there's another training opportunity as well. But again, I'm just thrilled to be here with you all today. So I am a senior coach and partner with For Impact, and I've actually been in the fundraising field for almost 25 years now. And so I've worked at a lot of different types of organizations here in the US. In my role as a coach, I've supported organizations all over the world. And before I was a coach at For Impact, I was actually a client. So I was a chief development officer for a nonprofit in the Northwest region here in the US for about 8 years. And we had hired For Impact because we were struggling to figure out how to tell our story in a way that was clear and compelling and not problematic. And so we hired For Impact, and really they helped us to transform how we did our work and really set my team up for success long term. So I'm a big fan. When I had the chance to come over and be a coach, I jumped at it, and I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. So I'm looking forward to talking a bit more about story and altitude, which we'll get into. But before I dive into that, I'd love to start with this thing that Tess mentioned already, this concept that impact drives income. So one of the things that I love that I heard this in the breakout room, but also in our debrief of the breakouts, fundraising isn't fun, it's stress raising. So one of the things that we tend to do in impact organizations and nonprofits is we tend to focus on the money because we have to, right? We're trying to survive, we're trying to thrive, we're trying to deliver important missions, but we tend to focus on the dollars. And what I want us to do today is to shift that. I want us to focus on the impact. I think what you'll find, and what we know to be true, is that it's the impact that drives the income. So if we can effectively focus on the impact and be telling a story and inviting people into a story of impact, it feels a lot less like asking. It feels a lot less stressful. We're giving people an opportunity to do something meaningful. So my hope for today is that I don't expect it to be, I don't expect you all to think that fundraising is fun per se, but I hope that it'll help you think through how it can be a little more enjoyable than stress raising. So, before we dive in, what I want to do next is ask you to do a little exercise. I'm not going to make you do this out loud, but on the piece of paper, on your computer, I'd love to just open with this reflection. So what I want you to do is to imagine that you're meeting with a funder prospect for the first time, and you've got 3 minutes to convince the funder that they should invest in your organization. And what I want you to do is write down 6 bullet points of what are the things that you would need to mention to get that funder to invest in your organization. It's okay if you have less than 6 or more than 6, but I'm going to give you about 30 seconds here to just list things out. So I'll stop talking for 30 seconds, let you make your list. I'll give you a little bit longer. Go ahead and keep writing down. Okay, I'm going to transition us. You can go ahead and keep writing if you're still working diligently on what do we need a funder to know to have them invest in our work. The point that I want to make here, and hang on to this list because we're going to come back to it later, but the point I want to make is that we all know the impact that our organizations have, right? This is what gets us up in the morning. It's what we eat and sleep and breathe and think about all the time because we care so much about this work. So we know our impact. The issue isn't whether we know the impact. The issue often is how do we put that into a story? How do we tell a story that's compelling, that brings other people in? So I want to demonstrate this idea for you by telling you a story. I want to tell you a story about someone named Sister Patricia. So Sister Patricia was a client of For Impact several years ago. She was a sister, she's a nun, and she ran a Catholic ministry organization that provided housing services to women and children experiencing homelessness. So this organization was going into a campaign. They needed to build a new building to be able to better serve more women and children experiencing homelessness. And so they were launching a campaign. Well, Sister Pat's top prospect, so very top prospect, we'll call her Denise just for fun. Denise was somebody that had a lot of capacity. So Denise, her family owned an NFL team. So in the US, football is a very big deal. The shorthand for that is this family had a lot of money. They owned a professional football team. Okay, so they had a lot of money. And we also knew that Denise was a Catholic, and we knew that she had supported other homelessness causes and that she supported issues around women and children. So we knew that she had high capacity, she had the ability to make a large gift, and we knew that she would care about our cause. The thing that we didn't have was a connection to Sister Pat or to her organization. So the coach that was working with Sister Pat every week for several weeks and months, every Monday would say, okay, Sister Pat, where are we at with Denise? Have we found an inroad to meet with Denise? And every week there was a different reason why that hadn't happened, and so on and so forth. They decided to get really serious about getting a pathway to meet with Denise because she's the top prospect for this big campaign. So they got a contact person for the company that Denise worked at. That person gave them the contact for Denise's scheduler. Great, right? So Sister Pat reached out to the scheduler and said, I'd love to send a note to Denise. Here's who I am. Here's why I'd love to meet. The scheduler said, I can't make any promises, but I'll pass this on. Well, they got word back that they couldn't meet. Denise is really busy. Can you please check back with us in a couple months in the fall? So she did. She checked back in a couple months in the fall and got pushed off until New Year's. Can you reach back out in the new year? It's just terribly busy. We couldn't meet now. So she did that. You can see there's a pattern, right? Reach out in a couple months, reach out in a couple months. Well, this went on for 16 months overall. Okay. So reaching out, being persistent and everything. But Sister Pat finally did get a meeting with Denise. And in that meeting, she was able to engage with her, to tell her the story, to find those points of alignment. And she just laid it out on the table and said, and because Denise had asked, how can I help? Sister Pat said, we're trying to raise $7 million to build a new facility to support more women and children experiencing homelessness. We'd love for you to take the lead. And she got about $1 million commitment from that conversation. So a couple things that I want to highlight for you. So we said it was about 16 months of process, but here's the interesting point. All told, the amount of hours that it took Sister Pat in terms of her effort and focused energy to get this visit and get this $1 million gift was only about 80 minutes. 16 months, 80 minutes of focused work, $1 million gift. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is that, again, 16 months, 80 minutes, $1 million. The reason I'm bringing this up is it brings this concept to mind that we call return on energy. So return on energy, it's prioritizing the story and the conversations that generate the most impact per hour invested. Now, I don't have to tell anybody on this call why that's important. We have limited hours in every day, and probably most of us have a lot of different things pulling us in different directions, demanding our time. So figuring out how to get the highest return on that energy on the time that we spend is really important. So Sister Pat was able to have a really high return on energy. Yes, it was expanded over 16 months, but only 80 minutes of work, $1 million gift. Okay. I'm talking about return on energy because that's really what altitude gives you. So altitude is what we're here to talk about today. And I'm going to share what that actually looks like. So the altitude framework is a tool that we use at For Impact to help organizations think about and tell their stories from different perspectives. And these perspectives all have a particular role to play. I'm in the US, so I tried to translate this. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry. But we talk about the highest altitude being 30,000 feet. I believe that's 10,000 meters for those of you that don't have feet as your measurement. But the point being, this is the highest altitude is, think of the cruising altitude in an airplane, right? Think about what you can see. At that level, we're seeing just very high level. This is where we're talking about vision and the why and purpose. When you come down a little bit in altitude, 14,000 feet, about 5,000 meters, we're talking about the top of a mountain. Okay, so think about what you can see from an airplane versus the top of a mountain. You're starting to see more detail, starting to see how this all comes together. This is the what, or the strategy. This is where we talk about the priorities. And then finally, coming down to the lowest altitude, 3 feet, 1 meter, we're in the weeds, right? We're in the execution, in the plan, in the how. How do we do this? The other important thing about altitude is that each of these altitudes also answers a critical question that every funder has, whether they ask it to you or not. So the first question, at the highest altitude, 10,000 meters, the question we're trying to answer for a funder is toward what end? Why do we exist? Another way I like to put this is so what? Like, why should I care about this cause? Okay, so we need to be able to answer that question. At the next altitude, the question we're trying to answer is where does the money go? So we're trying to lay out the foundation for why do we need funding? What is that going to help us accomplish? So where does the money go? That's the second question every funder has. And finally, at that lowest altitude, when we're in the weeds, the question we're trying to answer is, how can I help? So every conversation that we have with a potential funder should be driving them towards asking that question, how can I help? This is great, Salma. How can I help? This is great, Ariel. How can I help? Okay. So that's what we're trying to answer at this altitude. All right, now for some participation. If you're able to come on camera, come on camera. It's going to be way more interesting if there's more than two of us. But let's go back to your bullets that you wrote down in that first reflection exercise where I said, okay, you've got 3 minutes to convince somebody to invest in your organization. I want you to look at those bullets and I want you to look at this altitude, and using your hand, I'm going to ask you to show me, okay, most of my bullets are at 3 feet. Put your hand here in the screen. Or most of my bullets are at 30,000. Hey, good for you. I don't think that's probably the case. Or more likely, most of them are at 14,000. So right now, show me with the show of hands, if you're on camera, what altitude were your bullets at that you created in that first reflection? Got some 30,000, got some 3 feet. All right, maybe middle, got some 14. Yeah, exactly, Salma. Yep, I see you. Exactly. So the reason this is important is this leads us to another concept, which is this idea that our prospects are going to engage with us at the altitude that we choose. Okay. So when we're sitting down with somebody, if we open up with, here's all the details and here's the money and all of that, that's where the conversation's going to be. So I want to demonstrate this by telling you another story about another leader that we worked with at For Impact. So this leader's name is Cassie. She led an organization called Leadership Year, which is, as you might guess, a leadership training program. And so Cassie had been working with For Impact, and she had her coach actually go with her. She was going to have 2 donor visits this one day while she was in New York. So her coach went with her to her meetings. Now, the way that Cassie usually would do donor meetings is it's a year-long program. So she would come in, she would say, with Leadership Year, here's what we do every month, here's the curriculum, here's what we're going for, here's what we're trying to get done, here's how we teach and how we instill all these values. She would go in with a lot of detail. So we go into the first meeting with Cassie that day, and that's what she does. Okay, so she engages, here's all the details, here's answers to all these questions that nobody asked. And at the end of it, when she asks for support, what she gets is, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Send me some more information. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. So luckily, we had a lunch meeting in between these 2 donor visits. Cassie's coach and Cassie did. So they're talking, they're debriefing the meeting. And her coach said, so Cassie, I heard all of this stuff about the details, but why does that matter? Why does it matter that it's a year? Why does it matter that this is how we teach? Why does, and just started asking why again and again, kind of like if you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, they love that question, why? So just asking why. And eventually what happened was Cassie slammed her fists on the table and she said, we need better leaders. And the coach said, that's exactly right. That's where you need to lead. We need to give somebody a reason to care before they're going to hear all the details. Okay. So luckily, we had this perfect setup where Cassie had another meeting after this lunch meeting with another donor, another potential donor. Now, this gentleman was a 95-year-old. He was a Holocaust survivor. He's a financier. So we're meeting in his fancy office. Several factors were meeting after lunch, so you can probably imagine how the energy was. But you never want to have meetings after lunch if you can avoid it. But nonetheless, so Cassie and the coach go in, they meet with this financier, and Cassie really engages with him at that highest altitude, at that 10,000 meters, is really engaging around the why, is talking about why we need better leaders. And the coach asked the man that they were meeting with, does this make sense to you? Does this resonate? And the man leaned forward and he said, for 3 generations, my family has been building bridges. This is a great cause and I want to be part of it. How can I help? Perfect, right? So he didn't say, give me your financials. He was engaged. He was bought in at that highest altitude. And then they talked more about it. And of course, there's follow-up. We're going to send details with the follow-up. He needed to have information, needed to know how much we're raising, what are we trying to do. But the point is that he was bought in at that highest altitude and he wanted to help. And that's a much better starting point for that funding relationship than somebody saying, let me think about it. Okay. Now, the funny thing about this, remember how Cassie started her first visit and how she used to do visits where she said, okay, here's month 1 and then here's month 2 and goes all the way through the year. She finishes this conversation, gets this person bought in, wants more information. As they're leaving, the gentleman asks, so is this like a summer program or something? So it's right there in their name, right? But that detail was so irrelevant because it's not the why, okay? So let me contrast these 2 stories for you. So visit 1 led with details, 5,000 meters, maybe even 1 meter, and she got, I'll think about it. Visit 2 led with the vision and why, got the buy-in, got actually a 7-figure commitment, which is incredible. And at the end got this question about like, so summer program, what's the deal with your program? So this is just to demonstrate the importance of getting that buy-in at that high level. And the reason why is this, the way that our brains work. Our brains process meaning before detail. They process meaning before detail. What this means for us when we're in conversations with folks is that people are going to engage at whatever altitude you choose to open at. If you start in the weeds, that's where it's going to stay. But if you can get somebody bought in at that meaning layer, at that highest altitude, the why behind your work, it's going to be a much different conversation. So we have to be aware of what altitude are we flying at, because that's what we're inviting the person into in our conversation. Make sense? Okay. Great. I'm so glad it makes sense because now we have a little exercise for us to do. So I'm going to explain what this is first, and then we're going to put you into breakout rooms and we'll give you the details. So here's the scenario. We're each going to have 60 seconds to tell a potential funder what it is that we do. We're answering the question. The scenario is you're meeting with somebody for the first time and they ask you, so what do you guys do? Tell me about your organization. And you've got 60 seconds. And your goal in that 60 seconds is to get them to say, I get it. I get what you do. Okay. So the way this is going to work is we're going to put you into breakout rooms of 2. And what you need to do is decide in your breakout rooms which person is partner A that gets to play the salesperson or the fundraiser first, and then which person is person B that gets to play the funder or donor first. Now, don't worry, because halfway through this breakout, we're going to switch. So everybody's going to get a chance to do both, but you need to decide who's doing which one first. And then about halfway through, we'll give you a reminder that you got to switch, and then we'll come back together, okay? So you've got 60 seconds to tell your story and to get somebody to ask, or to get somebody to say, I get it, I get what you do. All right. Okay, I think we're ready for breakout rooms. I'll see you all back here in a few minutes, and good luck. Welcome back, everybody. I know, it goes fast, doesn't it? Welcome back. Welcome back. It always goes too fast. 60 seconds is real fast. So by show of hands, again, if you're able to jump on camera just for a moment, I'd love to see show of hands. How many of you, when it was your turn to be the fundraiser, how many of you got the other person to say, I get it, I get what you do? Raise your hand in 60 seconds. Okay. All right. We got like a couple like questionable, maybe thumbs up. I'm not sure what that means, but not the majority is what I would wager. And I can't prove that for sure because I'm just see what I see here, but probably not the majority. I'd love to hear from folks what made it challenging. What made it challenging trying to get somebody to say, I get what you do in 60 seconds?
I got what she said, but it is very challenging because you want somebody to start introducing themselves. Name, I'm an African. Name your children, your great-grandchildren. Now you're just narrating something that you're doing. It's very rude.
That is a fair point, and a very fair point. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I see in the chat a couple people do similar work, so no problem. Okay, that's great. All right. Well, we're going to take a beat here. And I don't know, is that a raised hand? Wilfred, do you have a question?
Yes, I think as we're doing this, my question is around personality types. There are people who are very much big picture. The more you get into details, you lose them. And there are other personality types. There are other people who like the details, right? So
Mhm.
while doing this, how do we first of all determine the type of person? Because I believe it won't work for everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are people who are like, yeah, spare me the details, tell me the big thing. And there are
Yeah.
other people who are like, no, I want to know all the tiny nitty-gritties. Yeah, so.
Yep, absolutely. Wilfred, hang with me. I promise we'll get there. Okay. I'm not going to answer directly, but we'll get there.
Great.
Salma, did you have a question?
Not necessarily a question, just to carry forward the conversation in the breakout rooms. In this same session, I've just realized the person I was speaking to, Ofe from Benin, there's a bit of language barrier. So just like Queenie said, we're Africans. We are happy we're here, so we're introducing ourselves. But in as much as we have mutual ground, 60 seconds is it's limited, basically, to just put it out there.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think just joining the dots and like to carry what Wilfred also said, people communicate differently. The styles are different. Big picture, small picture, we need to see how we can merge that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This is great. Many of you have surfaced one of the things that I want to talk about next here, and we're going to come back to this, so don't worry, I'm not forgetting about it. But let me make sure. Can you all see my screen still? Okay, yes. So what I want to talk about here for just a moment is this concept of engaging versus pitching. Now, I'll just say right off the bat, I know many of you work with accelerators, incubators. Pitching is a thing, right? It's something that we have to do. I'm not saying that pitching is bad. What I am saying is when you're in a one-on-one situation with somebody, pitching is not your friend. But let me start by just defining these terms a little bit more, okay? So pitching, when we're in a pitch competition, whatever, we're in front of a room, we're talking at people, right? We've got a limited amount of time. For some of us, as we shared, it feels rude. We haven't asked any questions of the other people, but in a pitch, that's what we're doing. We're monologuing about our organization. What happens for the funder in a pitch situation is that they stay a passive audience, right? And their brain doesn't have to work. It's easy to tune out what somebody's saying if you're not being asked to be part of that at all. Now, I want to contrast that with what we call engaging. When you're engaging with somebody, you're talking with them, okay? There's questions. There's not just questions, but I asked you this question, Tess, you gave me this answer, so I'm going to build on that and say yes, and let me tell you more about this. So we're being responsive to what we've heard. In this situation, in an engaging situation, the funder is an active participant, and each question actually activates their brain. So the difference here, the big difference between pitching and engaging, which I love that this came up for so many of you just as a barrier, is asking questions. And I would add listening, right? Like not just asking questions, but then incorporating the answers into the next thing that you talk about. So asking questions is really important. The science behind this is interesting. So the question actually forces the brain to actively construct meaning instead of passively receiving it. So it switches us from passive to active mode. It forces the brain to do some work, which forces the person to be more engaged with what we're doing. And it's the same mechanism behind what we talked about before, this idea of the brain processing meaning before details. So questions are the thing that can help us have a more engaging conversation and can really bring somebody in. That's what we want to do. So again, I'm not bagging on pitching. Pitching has its place, but it's not one-on-one. So when we're one-on-one with a funder, with a prospect, we need to engage and not pitch. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Great. We're going to do this again. I'm going to put you in different groups. So hopefully, I hope that you get mixed in with somebody that you're not familiar with at all, but that's even if you don't, that's okay. So what I want you to do is the same thing that we just did, the same exercise, 60 seconds to get someone to say, I get it. Person A is the fundraiser, person B, and then we'll switch halfway through. The difference I want you to make here is I want you to incorporate a question or two and to make it a more of an engagement and less of a pitch. So questions can be open-ended. They can be, does that make sense to you? You could start off with a question like, are you familiar with this area of work? Or, so I'll leave it to you, but we'll go ahead and go into breakout rooms and do the same exercise, but this time with questions. All right, let's go ahead and break out.
Christy, you are on mute.
I sure am. I was welcoming you back too, but on mute. Thank you. I forgot that it does that when you move from room to room. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so eager to hear what was different this time around. So I'm going to open it up. I'd love to hear if you want to come off of mute or if you want to put in the chat, what was different this time? What did you notice, either as the fundraiser or the pretend funder?
Okay, so hello, my name is Atul from Academic City. Yeah, I was the pretend funder. The pretend fundraiser was Keith. He asked one question and I addressed it, but we didn't have the time for him to ask his follow-up question.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, so I don't know if Keith, sorry, not to put you on the spot, but I kind of put you on the spot. If you can chip in, yeah.
Yeah, I think the 1 minute was, or the seconds were a bit short for question and answer. And then replying to the answer, because I think there was a story that he also provided that would actually help with the conversation. And it was, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Go ahead.
okay, I met with, I was in the same room with Ariel, and we were able to connect because she was, well, actually, she's over in the US right now, and I am from the US, and she's in Virginia, and I went to college in Virginia. So we were really able to connect off that questioning, initially just location alone. And I think I got her to donate. Oh, I don't know. That's up to you to answer that question,
You
Ariel.
closed. I just wanted you to get her to say, I get it, but you closed. Way to go, Richard. That's fantastic. That's great. Okay, so what I want to do, I hope that this was helpful. Some of the things that we noticed, I hope that when you were playing the role of the funder, I hope that you felt a little bit more leaned in, right? I hope that you had somebody ask you a question that really got you involved. And the reason for that is I want you to be able to call back to that and to make sure that you are doing that when you're meeting with people, that you're asking the questions that get them to lean in, that get them to share something about their connection to the cause. I want to do just a quick time check here, Tess. I know, I think we've still got some time. Then let's see here. Let me jump over to this. So I'm going to jump into how we can use AI to tell our story better, but just want to check in and make sure we're still on track then. Okay.
We are just a little over time. So for those
Okay.
who are on the call, we're probably going to run 5 to 7 minutes over time. So for anyone who has a hard stop, it's okay. But if you could stay with us until the end, that would be fantastic.
Fabulous. Great. Yes, this is great. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to shift gears here. Don't worry, there's going to be some more training opportunities, so I'd love to be able to connect with you all outside of this. But what I want to do is talk about one of the ways that we can increase our return on energy. Remember that concept we talked about earlier? How do we use the limited hours that we have in the most effective way to get the funding we need to deliver on our missions? So I'm going to show you, I have just a demonstration on how we can use AI to help with that. And for this exercise, I'm just going to share some screenshots just to show you what it can do. Now, in my case, I actually use Claude, but you can use ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever you've got. Any of those models will work fine for this purpose. But what I wanted to do is give you a tool that you can use to plug in some of your own organization mission, have it help you identify like, oh, it's mostly, at this altitude. And then what you can do, how you can ask it to help you refine it so that you get closer to that highest altitude, 10,000 meter kind of a statement that's going to give somebody something to care about, that's going to provide that meaning that they need before the detail, okay? So we're going to do a 3-step process, and it's going to be, we're going to first diagnose where is the messaging stuck. Then we're going to use that why ladder, that 3 or 4-year-old, why, asking why a bunch of times to get up in altitude, and then we're going to compress and go from the altitude to something much shorter that we can use in a lot of different settings. So again, for my situation, I used Claude. Don't worry, we don't have to read everything on here. I just wanted to screen grab what I put in. So for my prompt, I made up an organization called Jenga Fursa Hub, and they are based in Kenya. They are a youth-focused agribusiness incubator. And I put in here in the prompt for Claude, I put all this information because we know when we're using AI, the more context we can provide in our prompt, the better quality the output. So for my big prompt, I said, okay, here's how we currently describe our work at Jenga Fursa. And I want you to use the 4-impact altitude framework. Here it is. I want you to use this and diagnose what altitude is my messaging at right now. This took about 5 seconds, so it took longer to write the prompt than it did for Claude to come up with an answer. So here's what we came back with. This is the output. Looks like our description lives almost entirely at 14,000 feet, 5,000 meters. Here's what's present. Here's what's missing. And importantly, one of the things that's missing is the part that tells us why we should care about Jenga Fursa Hub, okay? So it gave us what's missing. Now we diagnosed the problem, first of all. Now what we want to do is use the same conversation that I'm having with Claude to take it to the next level. So the next thing I did is I added another prompt and I said, okay, I need you to ask me why 5 times on our program description, laddering up each time until we reach a 30,000 foot, 10,000 meter purpose statement, okay? This is really cool. Don't worry, you don't have to read all the things. The gist of this, and actually I'll send you the slides. You can all spend as much time with this or as little as you want. But the point here is you can see the reasoning. So here's where we started, Jenga Fursa Hub, this is what we do. And then it asked why. Why do these ventures need training, grants, and market linkages? And then why can't they access capital on their own? Why does exclusion matter? Ultimately getting to why does the food system's future matter ultimately? And that led us to this very high level purpose statement that's way more helpful than what we started with, right? We believe the future of the Lake Victoria Basin depends on a generation of young people choosing to build their lives in agriculture, not leaving it behind. Awesome. Way more impactful, I think, than that 14,000. Now, this statement here is not unimportant. It's just not what you lead with, right? The brain processes meaning before detail. What we're doing is starting with that meaning, starting at that high altitude. Okay, great. Still, that's a mouthful. Probably not something I'm going to use all the time when I'm talking with people. So the next thing I did was I asked Claude, hey, okay, this is great. Can you give me 5 versions of our toward what end statement, our 10,000 meter statement, ranging from a 3-word phrase to a 26-word sentence? Boom, here you go. 10 seconds. It did not take long. So here you've got a variety of ways that you can do this. So I wanted to share with you that there's some great tools available that you can use that can help you really cut down the amount of time that it takes to start thinking about how do we frame our message around our why so that we're giving people the meaning before the detail. So this was 3 prompts. I think all told, it probably took about 40 seconds for Claude to think about all of that and to turn something back. It's not perfect. Anything you do with AI is not perfect. You always have to have a human in the loop. But the point is, it gives you a starting point. And I didn't have to spend hours coming up with each of those and refining each of those on my own. I had a partner that could help, right? So we put one operational paragraph in and got a funder ready statement and 5 header options out of that.
Hi,
Pretty
Chris.
great.
I just
Yeah.
have a quick question. Are you presenting? Or because we can't see.
Oh no, are you serious? Oh no.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. I'm sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. But we'll get
Okay.
access to the slides, so that's
You will
helpful.
get access to the slides. I won't go through all of these again, but here's what here, as I was talking and referencing things that you couldn't see. Here's the prompt for that first step. Here's the output. So again, took about 5 seconds. This is where we're asking, where is the messaging stuck? Here's the why ladder. Here's the prompt that I put in to build on it. And then here was the output. So that's why I was saying, don't worry, it's a lot of words. You can take some time with this later. And then finally, the third prompt that took us from that statement, that high altitude statement, and gave us some options for headers. Thank you for saying that, Tess. I'm so sorry, y'all.
No
But as you
worries.
can see, yes, it's 3 prompts, about 40 seconds. We diagnosed, we did the Y ladder, and we compressed and got a really great output from that. So I'm going to start to wrap here. We'll do some Q&A, and then I have some information for you to follow up if you want to do some additional training, things like that. I'll share that with you too. But today, what I hope you're walking away with today is you've had a chance to think about altitude, think about how do we tell our story at different altitudes to answer the funding questions that every funder has. And hopefully some of the role playing gave you some more confidence in opening at the altitude that you choose. I'm going to pause for just a second and see if you have some more questions. And Tess, how long do we have for questions before I jump to the kind of like my close where we have the Google Sheet?
5 minutes for questions.
Great.
So yeah, I guess we'll just open up the floor again. I know Wilfred had a question at the start, and I know you handled it in the last couple of debriefs. So opening it up to anyone else who has a question from what Christy has shared.
Yeah, and it can be a question about anything. We can go back to return on energy. We can go back to some of the brain science or altitude. Happy to go back on the slides as well if that would be helpful, if there's anything we cruised by too fast. Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, maybe question that I have, Christy, thanks. This has been really, really incredible. I'm like at the edge of my seat. I guess the question I have is, how do you balance the sort of relational fundraising, which I feel like you're more focused on, with the sort of RFPs and you know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of organizations are responding to those. I know we do. It takes a lot of time and energy, and it's very painful. So yeah, is there a right balance, or is it just, yeah? What is your thinking on that? Should we be spending more time just building relationships and not even chasing those kind of
Clearly not. Clearly not. No, that's a great question. And I know, especially in one of the breakout rooms I was in, we talked about cuts to USAID and how that's shifted the funding landscape and, created all kinds of other need for other types of funding. So what I would say is I don't think that you should not do the RFPs in order to build relationships. What I would say is where you're able to, it's important to try to build relationships with the foundations as well. So some of what we're talking about around engagement, again, sometimes we tend to think of foundation and like the program managers or the people that we're sending our applications to, we tend to think of them as like, robots that just read RFPs and make decisions. But the truth is that we need to engage with them too. So I don't think it's an either or. I certainly think the more you can get in front of people one-to-one, the better outcomes you're going to have because you're able to find out in that one-on-one conversation more about alignment. That might affect which RFPs you go after. It might affect what program or project you put forward, but that one-on-one connection really does give you the opportunity to refine and give yourself the best chance of success. So it's definitely not an either or. And it's not always possible, I know, with some of the foundations, they won't make the time for you. But if you can, that would be the shift I would suggest. Yeah, and engage with them, ask them questions, get them to talk about their alignment with the cause. What is their foundation trying to accomplish, and where are we on the same page? Great question. Other thoughts, other questions, anything that I can double click on to help your understanding? Oh, I see in the chat, Moses, thanks for your question. How important is it for an organization to demonstrate measurable impact before approaching larger funders? My short answer to this is it depends. And this is where having those conversations can be really helpful because there are funders that actually are interested in funding earlier stage and funding the process of getting the impact numbers and all of that. But some of those pieces are hard to separate out without a conversation. And so, there's certainly going to be some in both camps. There's going to be funders that really want you to have the demonstrable impact. There's others that are going to say, hey, I see that you've got these proxies to show your impact, but you don't have the direct numbers yet. That's good enough for us. We want to fund your work and help you get closer to the impact numbers that you're looking for. So, but I think that really just highlights the importance of having a conversation versus just, sending out grants and RFPs at will without any conversation or engagement. Yeah, good question.
All right, I think we have the room for one more question. Then we'll close up this section.
All right, Salma, thank you for your question. How do you distinguish between having a lot of impact information and actually having a compelling story? Good question. Can you elaborate on that? Like, can you ask the question in a different way? Because I'm not sure if I see those as mutually exclusive.
Right. Thank you, Christy. What I mean by that question is, like you said, we have a lot of evidence, basically, that the organizations we support, the companies or the incubators, basically, are capable of doing the work. And you want to present this to your potential funder, for example. So how do you distinguish and how do you rake all this and distinguish and see which one holds more weight, which is more compelling? Which one, yeah, because you have a lot, you've stacked a lot. We can bring the numbers, whatever impact it is, but what can make it the most compelling one?
This is an excellent question. And actually, I think this points to something I wanted to say, which is, we talked today about the different altitude levels, but we spent a lot of time really focused on that highest altitude, right? And we talked about how the brain processes meaning before detail and how to make sure we're starting with meaning. That doesn't mean that those other altitudes are unimportant. The goal when you're engaging with somebody is to make sure that they're bought in on the why before you dive into the impact and the details, right? And ideally, when you're in a one-on-one conversation, you're not giving them more details than they're asking for. So you're letting the questions guide that. So I don't think it's that one is more important than the other, but sequencing is important. And if somebody isn't really bought in at that highest level why, you're going to get a lot of other questions that are more detailed that are just hard to answer because you don't have that alignment at that highest altitude, if that makes sense. So the the thing I wanted to point out here, so our funding approach when we work with clients is we work as this is like a three-legged stool. So we do the story plus the prospects plus the process. That's how we get outcomes that we want for our organization and for our teams. Today we had time to just go into like the tip of the iceberg on the story piece. There are more trainings available where you can dive in deeper on all of these areas actually, and I would highly recommend them. And what I wanted to offer to you all today is I can give you a discount code to actually register for one of our, we call them a funding boot camp, and it's a 2-day online virtual training. I can give you a code to register for that at no cost for folks that attended today's session. So all that you need to do is actually we'll send this out in an email. We'll send the slide deck out, and we will you can click on the link here. It's a 2-question survey. It's literally like, tell me 1 or 2 sentences about a funding challenge you're having, and then tell me where to send your code. So it's not a lot of work, but this is how you can get a code to register for our bootcamp that'll go into more depth. And then I also included my contact information as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you have more questions, or if you want to just connect and hear more about how For Impact might be able to help your organization. Now I'll turn it back over to Tess.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christy. As you can all see, the poll is now gone up. Please give us your feedback for how the session has been. While you're there on your laptop giving out feedback, I think it would be nice to give a nice warm round of applause for Christy with your emojis, because I mean, she has done a great job, truly. And I think it's interesting to hear fundraising being explained in the way that you have explained it. And actually, one of the questions that I received from the registration form was like, what certificates or like what can you go to school to learn to become like an expert in fundraising? Because you said you've had 20 years of experience in this industry. So was it all experiential, or is
Yeah,
this a course that you
that's
took?
an excellent question. So I do have a lot of experience, but I also did I did a certification program called the Certified Fundraising Executive. So that it's a certification that involves doing a lot of education, doing trainings, learning a lot of things, and then doing a test and keeping your credentials up. I don't know that you have to do a CFRE. I think really experience is the thing, getting a chance to do fundraising at different places, getting the chance to work with organizations like For Impact or with other orgs that are in your same space are really helpful. So I don't know that I'm the best advocate of like, you got to get a certification, because honestly, just being in the field, doing the hard work, having those stories where you went to a meeting and it didn't go how you wanted versus it did, that's really where the most important learning, I think, happens. So that's my 2 cents. I'm happy to talk if anybody has more questions about CFRE or about other certificates that you're looking into.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Christy. So I guess as we close, I'd like to just take maybe 1 more minute for the participants to fill out the feedback form. We are going to be sending out the slides after today's call in the thank you note, as well as the discount code that Christy has shared. So you can get access to this and read up on it and share it with the team shortly after. If you're interested in more frameworks just like Altitude, we do have our tool library on our website, and I'm just putting that down in the link. So please have a look at what we have there. And if you have any more resources that you would like to share with us, we also have a place where you can submit a tool. Christy, I'm not going to say anything more than what you have already shared, but what I'm taking home for sure is our brain processes meaning before detail. In the fear of, watering down all the knowledge you brought in today. So I'm going to give all the 18 of us on this call maybe 1 more minute to fill out the feedback form, and then we shall close and we will say, have a good night and have a good, rest of your day. So I'm just going to play some music for 1 more minute as we fill out the feedback form. All right, thank you for the 10 of you who have filled out the feedback form. Appreciate it.
Stumbling away, slowly learning that life is okay. Say after me, it's no better to be safe than sorry. Take on me, take me on. I'll be gone in a day or two.
All right, and with that, we are coming to the end of our session. A big thank you for making the time and for staying with us 5 minutes over time. Before you leave, please unmute and tell us bye in your favorite language. And then I will let you all leave and have a beautiful rest of your day. So thank you all so much for coming, and I'll see you again. Testo from Nairobi. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely day. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, Kwaheri. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Prince.
Kwaheri, thank you everyone. Thank you, Christy. And thank you, Tess and Polient Impact for this session.
No worries. Thank you, Salma. Thank you for coming.